Two, one. It's the week that matters, Mississippi State fans, the game that matters, as the Bulldogs get prepared to host Thursday evening. The Ole Miss Rebels, yes, I'll use the name, Steve. I know I violated a team rule right there. I'll probably have to skip the first couple of series. But Mississippi State will be hosting Ole Miss, 6:30 ESPN. It's Monday, Steve. We had a chance to talk to Dan Mullen and some players today. First off, let's just go through the general mood. State coming off a tough win at Arkansas, tougher than expected, but Nick Fitzgerald told us that they put that behind very fast, no time to celebrate, get right to work.
Yeah, it's like nobody wants to talk about Arkansas. Even Dan Mullen said that maybe after Thursday that they can have like a double celebration Friday and Saturday. But, it's a real business approach, and I know that's what Bulldog fans want to hear, that the attention this week is about Ole Miss. And one of the things that's interesting, too, is even talking to Eris Williams, they don't want to say much. You just kind of get a sense that they don't want to put anything out there to inflame the Rebels or any bulletin board material. It's just been a real business-like approach with the Bulldogs today.
Very much so, because some of the player interviews we did, Martinez Rankin, Nick Fitzgerald, as he mentioned, Eris Williams and others, very tight-lipped. Some guys that sometimes like to talk were really guarded in what they said. I think they don't want to provide any extra bulletin board motivation there for this week. Now, how much that really matters in a game, you don't know, but rivalry games are different. Emotion matters, and we've seen in the past, Steve, that if a team shows up a little bit flat for this game, first quarters can be fateful.
It's true, Dave. We know that from experience. I mean, the last time the Rebels were here, obviously in 2015, and Dak Prescott's senior night performance, he comes out, next thing you know, Dak's fumbled, and Ole Miss has raced to the other end, and there's a pick six, and it seems like the ball game was over before it really began, and then we had to sit there for three more quarters and just waiting for the clock to tick off. But this team, I think, is a little more mature in many respects, especially on the offensive line. That was really kind of the Achilles heel of 2015. This group has really found a sense of itself and been one of the better offensive lines in the country.
And we talk about first quarters. I'm not saying the Bulldogs need to come out and deliver a haymaker punch the first series. It's more because of the way Ole Miss has played this season, because of the way the Bulldogs have played this season, looking at the both. The Bulldogs are a good second, third, fourth quarter team. As long as they're steady in the first quarter and things don't get away, their strength, their game plan, the things they can do can take over. So is this a way, Steve, that they kind of go into it thinking, just keep it under control, do what you do, and that extends into game planning, into game week, and just in the player attitude. Yes, rivalry, get fired up, but not so fired up you forget what you're doing.
That's true, David. And I think for Mississippi State, too, as we saw this past weekend, they did have a first quarter deficit of 2 scores, and they're able to kind of stick with the game plan and come back. I think it's a little different in this respect. I think with this crowd, State needs to not get a solid start. You need to survive the first quarter, if we talked about before. But I believe if these Bulldogs can get an early lead and kind of get the crowd into it, it could be a different ball game. But you're exactly right, David. It's one of those situations. State can't come out chasing the game and start doing things they don't ordinarily do, because that could lead to some problems, especially with an Ole Miss team that really, this is their season. Let's be honest about it. A win for this team would make them 6-6, and it would be a win over their arch rival, a team that they like to blame for everything. So this would make it. This would be an absolute season clincher, for Ole Miss.
Oh, censure's a word we may hear this week as well. I can't imagine what they would want to blame Mississippi State for in this regard. I think most of the wounds are self-imposed in that regard. But enough about the rival on this point. Some notes today about the Bulldogs. Some disappointing news in a couple of health situations. Des Harris will not be available this game, and Donald Gray is not only out for the game, he's done for the season with a surgery to fix a sports hernia, Dan Mullen finally told us today.
It's true, David, and you really hate that for those seniors, the guys that have one more opportunity, because they never knew when their final game was coming. They thought it would be in a bold location somewhere in South Florida, but now here it is. They're finished. And Donald Gray is a guy that has worked extremely hard for this Mississippi State Bulldog football program, so you hate to see him go out that way. The hope is that his fellow seniors and his other Bulldogs will send him out as a winner, even though he's not an active participant.
Good news of being on Brandon Bryant, who could have played this past weekend. They held him back as precaution, and they also kept Keith Mixon at home. He could have played against Arkansas. There was no sense in letting guys stand in the cold for 4 hours and get stiff, because they had to jump right into practice on Sunday. They did practice Sunday, and everything we're told, it was a very good practice.
It's true, David. And, we also were told Saturday, even in postgame, that the coaches were leaving immediately after Dan Mullen's postgame presser to get into a private jet and get home and start grading film and breaking things down and beginning to look at some Ole Miss tendencies. And I'm sure there were some staffers that watched that ball game Saturday night with Texas A&M. But then the Bulldogs come back, they get on the bus, and they get back to their dorms, and the guys that need treatment get treatment. They're right back here Sunday, ready to work. And it does appear that they had a good practice session on Sunday. Limited preparation time, David, so they got to make the most of it.
And as we tape this, Bulldogs are getting ready to practice. They were running from about 6 o'clock to 8 o'clock tonight. We'll be talking to Coach Todd Grantham afterwards and post that interview tomorrow. But this has been a Dan Mullen trademark over the years, that given the chance, the way the academic schedule sets up, he wants to practice as close as possible to the actual game time, and that's what they're doing this week.
It's true, David. And, Dan Mullen, I thought today, I wouldn't say that he was cagey, but he didn't give us a whole lot of meat today. I kind of felt like practice today, practice yesterday, it's almost like a bunker mentality. And that's with some of the messages we've had this evening from players. It really appears that Dan Mullen has really made this game a point for this season, a real point of emphasis. And that's one of the things some of our fans have mentioned in the past is, well, with Dan talking so much about the school up north the first couple of years, he's kind of gotten away from that. Has the rivalry lost some luster with Mullen? And he kind of clarified that today and said, no, but there are more goals than just beating Ole Miss. And when he first got here, that was the first way to kind of get the ball rolling, was to get the upper hand in the rivalry. But this game is still very important to the head dog.
I apologize for the sneeze. Maybe some of that dust from the Georgia Dome blowing up today has finally drifted over here. Well, that Cheeto dust they had in there. Sorry about that, fans. Looking at this matchup now, Mississippi State, they're having to prepare for a different quarterback. Now, they did the same thing last year. They only had 2 full games of tape to prepare for Shea Patterson. Now they've got a few more games of tape to prepare for Jordan Tamu. And he's a different type of quarterback in some ways. He's more balanced than the more talented, more explosive, but not as quite run-prone guy Patterson was. But now they have more tape to watch of him. They see some tendencies. They see his good, and they've seen his bad. So it gives them a little chance to maybe do some more game planning that might not have had they made the change later in the year.
That's true, David. And Shea Patterson, he is an unbelievable arm talent. Not really a plus runner. He is very agile. He's a scrambler. He's a guy that'll make you pay if there's a little bit of loss of containment outside. But Jordan Tamu is a plus runner. He is a guy that you will call plays for. They'll be designed run plays, some zone reads, or perhaps some quarterback draws and those kind of things. And he is a guy that'll hurt you. He's not a guy that's just running to keep you honest. He is a real weapon with his feet. In many respects, I think he's made Ole Miss more of a multiple offense because, Shea Patterson, with his obvious arm talent and his unbelievable wide receivers, just throw it down the field and let those guys go make a play. He has some of that in his game as well, but he does provide some unique challenges because of the fact he can run. He's almost like a Kellen Mond, but with a better arm, a better passing skill set. And so the Bulldogs and Coach Todd Grantham will have their work cut out for him. I expect him to come out and play well for sure.
Flipping that over to the Bulldog offense, State got the 2 big touchdown passes in the fourth quarter of Nick Fitzgerald. He hasn't had the percentage year throwing the ball he wants. Now, how much of that has been the rotating door at receiver position, some guys that maybe are playing out of position, that slot guys playing split end and vice versa, things like that. And he's had some drops as well. But the Arkansas game and other games, he's made the big passes when it really counts. Do you see that as a factor this week, or do you just expect State to come out there and do that run option and just try to pound the ball like they did in Oxford last year?
Well, with Ole Miss's struggle stopping the run, I think that's obviously job one, is to establish the running game and then use some of that and maybe set up some bigger shots. But, quite frankly, when State is on running, you kind of just pass to keep the safeties honest. And, Ole Miss could walk 8 or 9 guys down in the box and force them to throw the football. My hope is that guys like Jesse Jackson, Jordan Thomas, and Keith Mixon have come along and kind of matured this year.
And Reggie Todd with how he played this past week, and Dedrick Thomas.
Absolutely. And so you think they've got a better sense of confidence about themselves, and perhaps they can come out and be real weapons this year, but especially this weekend. But the bottom line is State has to run the football, and Ole Miss is a team that has been susceptible to giving up some rushing yards, 125th out of 129 teams. So this is one I'm sure Dan Mullen's looking at thinking, okay, we don't have to come out here and be Texas Tech. We can just be Mississippi State, line up and run the football, and I'm sure that's going to be a big part of the game plan.
And Steve and I will be talking prior to the game on Thursday, and we'll throw obvious points about as long as you don't turn the ball over, play your game, you should be in good shape there. Every team says that. Mississippi State, that really applies. Stay in control. Make it that you're in charge by halftime. Take charge of things. Just do what you do. And that should be good enough for a Bulldog team that right now is ranked number 16. We expect the new poll to come out tomorrow evening. Good chance the Bulldogs to move up in the top 15. And that, of course, has a bearing on postseason, which is still taking shape. But, we'll be looking for the list of bowl scouts attending this week, but I can guarantee that a certain Orlando-based bowl will be there. And State has a position to finish 9-3. By the way, Dan Mullen could finish with 4 9-win seasons here in the last 5 years. Quite an accomplishment by any sort of measure in this program. So State has everything to play for. Ole Miss, all they have to play for is revenge, which in a rivalry game is a big factor, but revenge only takes you so far.
It's true, David. At the end, once the emotion of the moment is kind of lost, you've got to go out and execute on offense and defense. And so, yeah, the first quarters are going to be big because that's when the equilibrium will kind of be set. And emotion will get you out there probably around midfield. But in order to cash in and really make some plays, you've got to be able to play within yourself and not get all wound up and get all knotted up with emotion. You've got to go out there and play football. And at the end, like Nick Fitzgerald even said, once you get through a couple series, you're just playing football again. You're back to doing what you should be doing, reading your keys. And I think that's important. The team that gets there soonest will be in the best shape.
A couple quick points, Steve. First, give us an idea of your book signings this weekend. I know this is a big one here with the book Flim Flam, which happens to involve the team coming to town. And then what, recruiting-wise, can State do or will they try to do around the Thanksgiving weekend?
Well, on Thursday, I will be at Campus Book Mart prior to the Egg Bowl. That's going to be 3 to 5. And then on Friday, I will be in Tuscaloosa doing a book signing there. And then on Saturday, I'll be in Ridgeland at Barnes & Noble from 4 to 6, I believe. Recruiting-wise, it's a mixed bag. Because it's a night game, that's helpful, but it's also Thanksgiving night. There are a lot of people that'll be, off the beaten path a bit and at Grandma's house, and so you have some obligations. Sometimes you have to meet those. But the usual suspects, a lot of Dent State kids, the Golden Triangle guys, the guys that are routinely coming to ball games, they've made their plans to come to this ball game and kind of made it around Thanksgiving dinner. And there's some people that are going to have a get-together on Saturday, a bigger deal. So it'll be a big weekend. There is a couple of visitors that are coming in, Chris Black being one, offensive lineman out of Pennsylvania. That's one that's a big one there. That State could get him, flip him from a UCLA program that just recently terminated their coach. Should be a good opportunity for the Bulldogs.
And, of course, the best recruiting is to win. So the players who are watching the game, if they see the Bulldogs win, take care of business, see where they fit into the future with Coach Dan Mullen's program, that could be the best recruiting boost of all. And as we talked about with Nick Fitzgerald tonight, he was asked, what's the first time that you ever had contact with the Golden Egg? He said it was the morning after State defeated Ole Miss 2013 on Dak Prescott's great fourth quarter there, and he's at the recruiting visit the next morning breakfast. They're passing the egg around. It gave him a chance to feel a part of things, helped influence his decision to come to Mississippi State. And lo and behold, last year it's Nick Fitzgerald who brings the egg back to Starkville. So the best recruiting is just to win, and Mississippi State strongly favored. Okay, if you put such stock in these things, I've been around this a little too long and seen too many weird things happen in these rivalry games, but this is a game Mississippi State expects to win, one they certainly are in position to win, and we'll be talking about it the rest of the week. So in pregame, catch up with Steve and I as we talk from Scott Field as Bulldogs get ready for it. It's going to be a long Thanksgiving day. I know we'll be out here on campus early. You'll be taking care of your book signings. A lot to cover. The weather looks good, chilly maybe, but still clear and sunny. So make your plans to be here. Don't eat too much turkey. Don't show up sleepy. Don't be groggy here. And by the way, bring them and ring them for this game. For our staff on Gene's Page 24/7, for Gene Swindoll, Paul Jones, Robbie Falk, and Mike Nemeth, we have Steve Robertson. This is David Murray. It's Egg Bowl week, Bulldog fans. Get yourself ready.